Hi, my name is Chris McAlister. Welcome to the SightShift podcast. If you've ever found yourself in that tense place of leadership where big goals collide with deep conviction, there's an old word for that. It's called wilderness. And when you're in the wilderness, in the uncertainty, you're in a beautiful place because that's where you can find ancient wisdom. For ambitious, faith-driven leaders, I want you to know there's a way forward and you're not a bad leader to be where you are. We're going to help you in this podcast take all of those moments and use them to make culture your edge in your team, in your organization, in your family. So, good friends of the podcast, the SightShift podcast, I want to welcome you, and we got a little bit of different episode today. My friend Daniel Juday is here, and Daniel is someone who has been through some thick and thin moments with me over the years, and we'll talk about why he's here in a second, but Daniel, let you introduce yourself first and what you do in the world.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. My name's Daniel. I run with my wife a small business called Space Creator. We work to create space for leadership and culture growth, impact, and change. So I started off in the DEI space, thinking about and working with lots of organizations around Ohio and the country, questions of how do we get and be better as it relates to diversity and inclusion and equity, and some of the things that we find in that conversation that some of them feel like common sense and some of them felt like big, scary words we had to reframe, redefine, de-weaponize. And over the last handful of years, I've migrated toward a larger cultural conversation with companies that want to take that style of doing work and sort of expand it into more pockets of their organization beyond just what we might call DEI.
Yeah.
Because it's all people work.
Yeah.
So that's what I do on a day-to-day, and I'm lucky enough to find myself in the presence of folks like you and others and get to have these conversations. So
Awesome.
thrilled to be here.
So glad he's here, and I'll tell you why, guys, because there's like an overlapping Venn diagram for Daniel and I of so much shared thought, philosophy, ideas, practice, and we've had so many beautiful conversations. Also, too, though, there are spaces outside that overlap that are different. And we are going to be sharing more around some direction for SightShift that is going to feel new for some, but really in a way is an origin story. And as we thought about this moment, we didn't want this moment to just be something that felt like a TV infomercial, So tell me, what does that Tupperware do when it's hot? We wanted
You burp it. You got to burp it.
We wanted it to feel, that was good, like there was something out of an energetic curiosity. And because of, and we may get into some of this, but because of those differences, we're flipping the mic. So Daniel is running the show today. He's interviewing me on this origin story, return to our roots, feels like new direction kind of moment. And I honestly am up for the ride with you guys. And so Daniel, the mic's yours, man. Welcome.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, hopefully I do justice to this podcast and hit a little bit of what you expect when you sign on or download or hit play, and maybe a little bit different, to your point about shaking things up.
Yeah.
So I know you've shared with me that you are making maybe a shift, maybe a return, I guess different versions of the same idea, back to your roots, or thinking around kind of niching down toward faith-based leaders.
Yeah.
And connecting around maybe some of those specific challenges, needs, wants, and I want to kind of park what those are. I'd love to come back to those because I'm really curious.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start maybe by a big framing conviction that you shared with me, because I think for me and maybe for other folks, it will help create a box around this conversation that feels helpful.
Yeah.
You've said that you believe that insecure leaders are ruining the world.
Yeah.
And I would love to use that idea as kind of like okay, let's build out what that looks like and how what you're doing meets that moment.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you? Insecure leaders are ruining the world.
Yeah. So when a leader is acting out of this place that they're leading for their own validation, they're trying to get something from what they're doing more than they're trying to give something to it. They're going to show up in a way, especially under pressure, because a lot of leaders that we work with, they have it together most of the time, but it's that 3% of the time, around 43 minutes of the day for the highest performers, that their insecurities are causing them to either step into spaces where they're trying to take from it in a way of projection, we call it proving, or they're diminishing and they're hiding and they're just not trying to, they're trying to avoid putting themselves out there. And it's in those moments that the worst happens. And inattentiveness to a key problem needs to be done or addressed, and there's a hiding or there's a proving, and somebody shows up in a meeting in such a way that powers up, and everybody then starts to, quietly work on their own agenda because this person has crowded out any real conversation. Those moments ruin the world, and they start off small. They lead towards, all of that validation becomes a tax item on your P&L. You start to see that you lose key talent, whatever. We could blow that out big, but we're trying to find those small moments. Start there.
And you said 43 minutes a day. That's, I assume that's not a statistic that's a part of the 80% that you make up every day.
Yeah. That's exactly everything is no. So what we know, based on Robert Keegan's research, is about 3% of adults get to a point that they have a continually secure identity. And under those great moments of stress or duress, that 3% of leaders, they're so rare, it's possible. The best way we found to get them there is to think about roughly about 3% of their day, about 43 minutes. And sometimes it's in your mind, you're proving and hiding. You're like, oh man, I led the team meeting, and do they still like me? And you make it look like you're just trying to do good follow-up. Hey, great meeting, guys. But you're really trying to get an affirmation of, do they still like me?
Yeah.
And it's those little cues.
Did they think it was a great meeting?
Yes, exactly. Yes. You're trying to get that feedback in a very insecure way. And again, it's not like, these don't have consequence, because you play out the consequence of this, and I think about this like going home. A day can be what a day is. It can be really hard. It can be really dramatic. And you see these amazing stories of life change. And then you go in, and then reality is level set. Hey, babe, can you get the trash? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, if I'm insecure in that moment, she doesn't get the day that I've had.
Yeah.
Right. That compounds over time. It's not hard to imagine this. A CEO going home, she doesn't get me. She doesn't get me. She doesn't get me. And then there's an HR leader coming in his office. She gets me. She gets me. She gets me. She doesn't get me at home. She gets me. And then in one little moment, that CEO looks at his HR leader and says, what are you doing tonight? You want to go to the Coldplay concert?
I was wondering if you're going to get there.
So yeah, that's the consequence.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pretend to know their story. But,
no, of course. And that extrapolation maybe feels extreme, but not really, because I think most people have had moments of the person or the people you are doing life with the most intimately are the people with whom you have to be the most granular about things like taking out the trash. And
that's why Daniel's here. That was like, no, I've told you this before, but like the moment, the ability to know the moment and put it to words, mad props. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so is it, I'm sure it's a little bit reductive, but the difference between a secure and an insecure leader, a secure leader is tapped into what am I giving here? An insecure leader's figuring out what can I get? Is that overly reductive, or is that okay?
That's a great way to frame it. And that's why we found over the last couple of years, are you leading for impact or validation, to be a great introductory phrase, because it shapes this like, oh yeah, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
That's big.
I didn't have this on my list of questions I'd thought about before, but it's coming up for me now. This idea of giving and getting, which I think through your framework of impact or validation, if you go through those ideas and talk through them, they make a ton of sense. I don't think that's reductive.
Yeah.
I think we have... Am I allowed to say bad words on this podcast?
Yeah. It happens. It happens.
Okay. I need to say it because it's just the way we use this word, but I think we have a bastardized sense of servant leadership because it got so hot for a while. I'm a servant leader. I'm a servant leader. We see it in people's LinkedIn profiles, and we talk about it all the time. And I think there's tons of great ways to think about being a servant leader. The way I encounter it most often is not necessarily people leading for true impact, but using servant leadership idea or language to get back the feeling of I'm such a servant. It's still looking for validation.
It's still looking for validation.
Yeah,
exactly.
So do you see people pushing into your paradigm with servant leadership, thinking this is what we're talking about, right? And you unwinding that, or like where does that show up in your work?
I mean, so like this is actually a part of the most difficult thing for what we've recognized in the context of faith-driven entrepreneurs and business owners, because they're able to think they get it, and they're not, because they're going back to this kind of false martyrdom of, look at all I've done for you.
Yeah.
Look, and so when the pressure's on, when you're coming out with that energy, and I hate the moments I've done that, because I for sure have.
Yeah.
Look at all I've done for you. I've received some of those moments. I hate those moments. Those are horrible moments. And so the idea here is you can only really lead for impact, not validation, if you're getting the validation somewhere. Like, we're wired up to need it. And I need to be connected to something that can help me turn the loneliness into an energizing solitude, that can turn the pain into purpose. And for me, these aren't cliche phrases. These are real moments where, you know, the story about like, she doesn't get me, there's something in you that needs attention. And the answer isn't to stuff it down and go, let's gut this out.
Yeah, there's something in you that wants to get got.
Exactly.
And if you're not finding that person's getting me, then somebody else.
Yes.
Or not even that big of a thing, right?
Yeah.
But, you know. Okay, so we're talking about leading for impact or validation. We're talking about showing up too big or too small, kind of in that paradigm. So laying this shift or return that you've got activated right now of, let's come back to our roots of kind of faith-based thinking as it relates to leadership development. What is that doing for you and your ability? Like, why the shift? Let's start there, I guess.
Yeah, I honestly think there's like, Mark, our operations director, has introduced this language like dark light with like our measurement, our IFQ, that measures identity fears. So there's the dark side and the light side, and I love that because I got dark Chris in me. You know,
sure.
I got that in me.
Some of us were born in the dark. You've nearly become accustomed to it.
That was a laser callback. I do feel that way. I mean, so I think the answer that's honest is like an overlap of three things. Because I've really been trying to reflect on this for myself. And one of the dark ones, full stop, I know it's dark, is, I don't know if you've seen that thing online that's like, when were you radicalized? You know, so it's on like a social media thing, you know, when were you radicalized? And then you're sharing an event that like pushed you into something more reactive.
Yeah.
Now, I recognize that, and this is where I nerd out big time. Keegan's research, Nietzsche affirmed it. I think there's a lot of like ancient biblical wisdom on this. A reactive identity is a step forward, but it's not a stopping point. So what a lot of people think they're finding when they find their second worldview, other than the one they were raised with, is like, this is it. This is home. Yeah. But it very often isn't. It's that third worldview that's beyond an reactive identity. So I am recognizing what I'm about to say has some flaws in it. No human is my enemy. But, you know, I've got 3 kids at Ohio State. 2 graduate this year. And Lord willing. And so 2 of them have done a lot of classes at one of the satellite locations, OSU Newark, which is like out in the country, you know, relatively speaking. Yeah. The experiences they've had are so far extreme on a reactive identity. And it's like been mind-blowing to me. My daughter had a professor that was like, hey, you support the patriarchy if you get married. And so I divorced my husband and told my kids I shouldn't have had them because I'm participating in these patriarchal systems. And so, you know, when we were in school, we grew up with messages like, you're a patriot, you're a superstar. And now they're finding that if you surround kids with messaging like, are you considering self-harm, it actually gets them thinking about it more. And clearly mental health suffering is like hockey stick. It's, you know, so to hear them like getting out of the parking garage at OSU Maine, and it's like, are you considering self-harm plastered on the parking? So there's a part of that that's like we always have to progress things, but we also have to know what to conserve. And for me, conservatism isn't a cage, but like a root. And honestly, I'm a little nervous about how to best communicate this because I think I lose people on both extremes no matter what I do. But like watching society fail to really help advance kids and to see some of the messages. I mean, like one of my daughters had a professor pass out a paper around how the suffering the class that Marx talked about is now academic professors, and it's just such a one-sided thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done the gig. I was a professor. I taught religious foundations. I got all my classes were waitlisted because I never told them what to think. I said, here's robust thinking. Like, work your way through this. And so the first reason for me is not first in number, but just what's coming to mind now is a little bit of that energy of like, man, there's some ancient wisdom that would help with all this, and we're not getting access to it. Now, I'll let you comment there, and I go into the other two.
No, I want to park that and see how it plays with the other ones. I am noticing like this idea of like your second reactive worldview isn't. We tend to say, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, "Oh no, that's the reaction. What's next?"
Yes, yeah.
So you're doing that now with your daughters in college. They're getting this, and you're getting a new opportunity to have a reactive identity.
Yes,
and then trying to make sense of like, okay, we're all right.
Yeah,
so what other things are spurring the shift?
I think second, I look back at like my origin story. And so I think it was the right thing to do. It felt like the wise thing to do. When I launched into SightShift full-time 10 years ago, I really pushed away the biography of the full part of my story. And I just leaned in so hard into this like real estate development story. And that felt like the right thing to do. I felt a lot of peace in that because I was going into so many places and it wouldn't make sense to talk about the other part of my biography. But now that I'm 10 years in, and now that we've got hundreds of companies and we've got like serious endorsements from Fortune 75 to small businesses saying this has changed everything, there's a greater like credibility, if you will, and there's a timing that has felt right to be like, look, here's the real biography. I grew up in the home of a pastor. He was on TV and radio since I was like 5. It would be normal to get in the car and hear my dad's voice. Like, yeah that's my dad.
That's wild.
That's my dad's commercials. Wild. See him on TV, whatever. And then, I did that for 15 years. And it felt like the thing I was supposed to do at the time. I can look back at it now and go, there was a lot of truth in it for me. Everybody I served in that era, I'm glad to have served. But I think part of what was wired up in those 3 churches basically led through some transition was like trying to be close to my dad. Right. And so there was a lot of discernment for me that was like, I'm supposed to do what I do in my work. And the context of it was pastoring for a while, but it's evolved to something else. Now, it doesn't mean it has to evolve for everybody else. Yeah. But like, I nerded out, Daniel. I could sight read the Greek New Testament by 21. Like, this is deep in my bones. The experience I had that kind of gave me purpose when I had no purpose was watching the church my dad pastored split. And so, the joke lately, I've been telling the story more because I've been public about it. Like, I was kind of born in the darkness to care about insecure leadership and broken cultures because I have seen it. Yeah, I've seen it and lived it so much, I can be with a team and just sniff it. Now, we've built data around it because it can't just be my intuition. And I think the third reason is like, it's what I've seen in a decade plus of coaching people literally all over the world and in every context you can imagine, every business you can imagine, every orientation, male, female, just everything. When you can get to a source that is abundant, that is always available, like when you know to get your validation from that, I've seen a quicker lock-in. I've seen a quicker transformation. And what's been powerful about this is then to watch the difference in culture, which is, they're so confused about source. And the word used today would be identity. I could use the word identity in a company 9 years ago and I got to define it. Now, everybody thinks it's one or two things. If it's a big self-help room, they're like, oh, identity is like your role. James Clear, Atomic Habits, the quick way to get, momentum on something is to make it your identity. And he and I had lunch a couple times. To his credit, he reached out before he wrote the book to do his research. And super nice guy, nice as you could imagine. We just disagreed on that point.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get them there, but it's going to be brittle, because if they build their identity around it and then lose it, right?
Yeah, sure.
The other side of the room that we see so often is people that are hurting, and they're building their identity around the most invalidated part of who they are. And it sets up so much mental suffering. And so, it's just feeling like, oh my gosh, like, not in a proselytizing way, not in a forced way, but like there's ancient wisdom we can tap into. And there are contexts where I'm at and I'm very appropriate and sensitive. I mean, even if the business owner is like faith driven, they're usually not forcing that on the organization. It's more invitational. But it would not freak me out at all to like step into a setting of Christian business owners that expect the Bible to be opened and teach all this right from Luke 3-5 or Micah 6-8. I mean, there's paradigms that I think that are ancient wisdom and timeless that hit any situation. And so it's like, it feels like the next step to take that's just more honest about who I am. Not that it's been dishonest up to this point. Yeah. But you do the work for a while.
Yeah. I'm playing with that. Thank you for explaining all that. I'm kind of, it's Play-Doh in my head a little bit right now, but that idea of like, not that I wasn't honest about who I was before, but now it's like, I'm sure there are people who could try to call you, or who would call you onto the carpet about you're tailoring your biography to a business imperative or where you think you want to go, to whatever. But I guess cynically, we're all doing that anyways all the time as we think about who we are and the context of how we're showing up. We're not bringing 100% of ourselves into anything. So I don't think there's an issue for me there. You were making sense of like, what's my next? And but I did write down, you said ancient wisdom a couple times, and I've got some other places I want to go explore based on what you just said. But I think that's maybe the biggest umbrella idea. When you talk about faith-driven leaders today, in the socio-political climate that we're in, we're opening a huge can.
It's not a challenging environment at all.
And so, I mean, there are some places I want to go about that. There are some much more earnest places, not that that's not earnest, but like more personal and intimate places around how do we define some of this stuff. But I wonder, maybe you clearly on purpose are using the term ancient wisdom. Although I think many times you mean the Bible, because you just said I could open the Bible and talk. For you, is there a line between saying ancient wisdom and faith, ancient wisdom and Christianity, something like this that is, I'm on purpose saying ancient wisdom because it's a gentler front door for everybody. I'm on purpose saying that because it's a term that I get to define, not somebody else. Like, what's the...
I think about it more like a bigger invitational entryway. It's opening something up rather than closing it in. Because even in like 2015, when I went into this work full time, into 2014, whatever that was, my first book was like very Christian. Like theologically, it's the grounding of all our work. And there was a little bit of like, should I like take it off Amazon? Should I? And I felt a lot of peace in like, no, I want to leave it there. Let people find it that are going to find it. And occasionally people would buy that book thinking they bought the coaching book and be like, dude, what is this? And it wasn't a negative for some people. It was scary or nervous for some people. And we just walked through it. And so I think even back then I recognized, and a lot of this could sound like it's a perfectly calculated plan. It's much more like living in the moment and trying to say, what do I have peace to do? And the thing that I had peace to do then was, just let part of the story go to the background. And the thing that I have peace to do now is go, hey, let me bring this all back, because ancient wisdom is so huge. It's not just like the biblical wisdom. It's all of the way my brain works for ancient cultures. So, we think about, like, if we didn't have electricity, we'd go to bed at 9 p.m. We would all go to bed at a great time. You wouldn't have third shifts. I mean, all this stuff. Our bodies have really not evolved for electricity. We use it.
Yeah.
And I'm for it. I don't want to sleep without HVAC. I'm a fan. So it's not like I'm like, oh, the past is so glorified. But they had a wisdom to them. When ancient tribes would dance around the fire and work out all of the trauma in their nervous system, they wouldn't have used that language. They would have said, we're appeasing the gods and we're getting the ancestors' favor. So when we go on this hunt, we're successful. Because we know if we don't have success on the hunt, we don't eat.
Yeah.
So they just had learned through this collective consciousness that they really had, and there's been a lot of writing on this, like, this is something that's important. So we look at them and go, how stupid were they? That they thought that actually helped them be successful in the hunt. But what if it did? So there is a larger meta way that I'm looking at that. And I don't think, for me, the Bible, it's not like it magically is put in there. Instead, it's like, why did this story hold people's imaginations? You know, why did the poem of Job, because it would have been a poem and it would have been shared around the campfire long before it was ever written down. Why did it hold imagination so long? Is there something there that can help people? And for me, the inescapable reality is it's oozing with practical relevance. It's just hard to get there because, you know, I think on one end, people superstitiously just want you to check boxes for them. And like, you got to quote the verse and then I know you're good. And if you're good, I can listen to you.
Yeah.
On the other end, when I was a professor and they were like, look, we want you can be full-time. You just got to sign off on a decolonizing the patriarchy of the Bible and make that the main viewpoint, and you can have the job. And I'm like, I can't do that. I think that's a reductive way to read it, where we're trying to back end an individual consciousness that ancient mind didn't have. So for me, it is a really big thing.
Yeah.
But I'm able to, you know, I do think Christ is the fulfillment of everything Confucius or Taoism was hinting at. And there's a lot of philosophical elegance and beauty in the New Testament that I am totally riveted by.
So there is a tension there, though, that ancient wisdom means all of these ways that humans have evolved and carried stories that had practical meaning and application that we then see show up in faith stories and histories. But you also mean a sort of, I don't know if classic is the right word, but a classic understanding of Christianity as Christ, Jesus, the historical figure, is the embodiment of kind of when all of this comes together. That's the moment. Yeah,
and I think Paul brilliantly was synthesizing the fullness of Greek thought, because they got the closest to it with the term logos. I say logos just because I was trained in Greek language. They had this really elegant, like, man, there's this grand natural intelligence that you can go out into nature and be in moments, and you can, in our modern language, download something that is outside of yourself, that is guiding wisdom, guiding intelligence. And I think the Greeks were there, and I think the Jewish people had this monotheistic idea that had evolved for them. And I think the blending of those two is what's happening in the New Testament that is, to me, just philosophically brilliant. And so that is like, I think where we're at today is we don't have enough grounding in a philosophical approach that captures ancient wisdom, that if you want to take it even further, yes, Christ is the fulfillment of, that is a guiding reference point for so much, you know. I mean, there's just so many contexts. Like, how beautiful are the Beatitudes? Regardless of like someone's individual conviction, how much would that change the world if we just lived those? You know? Yeah.
Well, that brings up a really interesting point. So, you know, you're being very transparent. I'll be transparent. We come from somewhat similar backgrounds, different maybe intensity levels. And at the same time, or similar seasons of life, you are making kind of a shift back into indexing toward that. I've continued to make maybe a shift away, continuing.
Which is a part of why Daniel's here, just to interrupt and break the fourth wall. I love it.
I think, if I was considering working with you as, bringing the SightShift team into my company or something, in terms of who I am today, if you had left out the Christ part and said, what I mean by ancient wisdom is the ways that human beings carry meaning across generations. I'd be like, there's a truism there. There's an axiom. There's a yes and I want to lean into, because the way that I might language it with folks are like, people are people. Like companies come to me with this problem that sometimes they think is very specific, and it's like, I mean, I could hand you a PowerPoint from last year and you'd be like, oh, how'd you know? It's like, because people are people, and the problems and the challenges show up. So I think that's a huge front door that feels exciting to think about. How do we leverage what we've learned across millennia to this moment? That's cool. Because you're being honest and saying, hey, I also think Christ is the fulfillment of that. Like it's also a Christian pursuit in some regard, or in a specific regard. Then my radar goes up. But from past experience I've had, but also, okay, if I'm the leader of this organization and now we're going to start, our KPI meeting with a prayer, who on my team is feeling forced in? Like, now I'm asking people to position or posture in order to appease, to get my validation, right? It's like, what's the...
Totally.
How do you see this playing out for leaders that do want to do right by their companies, but also feel like they're checking into what you're saying now? How do you manage that disparity?
I love it. Because I have had people tell me, like, man, I mean, I can track with where you're heading at the same time, because like the Bible has this wisdom that I'm seeing some relevance because of some exposure they had to something on a TikTok video or something. But, I went to the Bible study because the boss was in there. I wanted to be happy with me. So I like a phrase that one of our team said a while back. It's an edge without arrogance. And so, what I've noticed over the last 9 months to a year being with teams is, and maybe I'm giving this signal out. It does seem like something's shifting in the conversation. We in no way force anything. Like, it's not even my style to do it. We have our data, we have our identity fears. We walk through that. What's the leadership mistake you make under pressure? How do you build a healthy culture? I mean, it's all of this very leadership-facing language that's very deep. Well, what we've had happening, people going, man, I'm a Christian, and this totally is affirming kind of like how I make sense of the world. And I'm in a spot in that moment, and you and I are both in these kind of moments all the time, so we know what to do in that moment. And I'm like, hey, thank you for sharing where you're aligning with this and what it affirms for you. That's really powerful. Others of you may have different thoughts or convictions about that. That's cool too. I mean, this is my style anyway. I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to help people take whatever next step is the right next step for them. The right next step for them might just be, oh, there are times I'm insecure and need for my own validation. Oh, it's related to this data. Now, if they want to know, like our IFQ is measuring the fruits of the Spirit. That's the 9 identity fears are built around that. They all align with a beatitude. Because, like, for me, and this is, I think, a really powerful point, it's not just like, oh, the fruits of the Spirit are in the Bible, so they're the fruits of the Spirit. And if that's where your faith has you and that's what builds you, cool. For me, it's more like, why did these 9 hold? What might, because Paul was totally drawing from things continually in Greek and Jewish thought and completing it. I mean, our whole culture model, if we get into it, was him reworking a Greek model. And it's profound, and it's quoted at weddings all the time, and people have no idea. So I'm looking at it and going, is there anything, if we all live the fruits of the Spirit, it says against such things there is no law. You don't need law. Humanity is working at its absolute best. And so my context is, I haven't found a better definition for what a beautiful humanity looks like. That these fruits are being lived out and that we're living these beatitudes. Now, how do we, I think the first hard challenge is how do we measure for that, which we've solved that with the IFQ, and then we can build the culture risk report. I think the second challenge is how do you language it so it's a wide open front door and as many people can come in as they want to, you know? So we haven't really seen people, because we don't do it that way, push back. Instead, it's been more. Now, if a business owner wanted me to be more open and direct, I would do it happily. It's fun. But I still wouldn't do it in a forced way. Just because I'm not wanting, I know in that room at any given time, there's people at all kinds of different places.
Yeah. Well, I do know you, and I know it's not your style to force something. I just know that for so many people, faith and religion, and particularly religious communities that they've been a part of, are so triggering one way or the other. You know? That it causes us to lean in. It causes us to lean out. I know that you, as a person who have kind of dedicated your life to sort of playing with this stuff, can float on the surface of that without feeling the pressure to say, if we don't get 100 yards deep right now, God doesn't like me anymore or something, you know? But I do think that's a really, and I mean, I feel it in my work too, not in this regard, but in the regard of like, I often tell leaders I'm working with, like, leadership is one of the most intimate things that you can practice. You are a person leading people who lead people, who serve other people. It's people all the way down. And the stuff that comes up when a group of people get together and try to get something done over a course of time, it's all the people stuff. You're in a long-term relationship with all these people, and we're not going to call them a family. Like, we'll protect, but the feelings are similar. And so I'm just sort of maybe parking. It's not even a question really, but just noticing that's really tender work. And I guess maybe I'm wondering, you probably feel one way about it, and folks in the room might feel a different way about it. You can feel light and playful. Yeah. And I'm curious, have there been moments where you've noticed, like, hey, somebody's kind of going off the rails, even though I think the vibe is light? Like, I know you're watching for that. Have you seen that?
No, the only time we ever have anything go off the rails is just somebody, and you've, I'm sure, seen this too, defiantly resistant to any change or transformation. And these would be in contexts where I'm not connecting it to faith at all. They're like, I don't know why we're here. I don't have anything to work on. There's nothing about my life that needs to get better. I mean, we've had that kind of stuff. And then you have crazy, beautiful breakthrough just through a few questions. It's more been like, hey, this just works. Where does all this come from? That's the thing that's been like, because Figure That Shift Out, the key coaching program, it turns 10 next month. The book does anyway. And like every one of those lessons comes out of ancient wisdom. So people are like, this works. What is it based on? Well, I'll tell you what it's not based on. It's not based on Maslow's hierarchy. Why? Well, because Maslow even came out later and was like, look, this is a wrong emphasis. Self-fulfillment can begin at the beginning. He never put a triangle to it. So there's a ton of people in business leadership that are like, we got to get your basic needs for survival met. Then we can talk about purpose. And I'm like, no, in my hardest moments, when my basic needs for survival weren't met, it's purpose that got me through. And so I did a lot of research years back and have just kept doing it. Like, and I don't remember all of it now, but like the top 10 leadership studies. The top 10 psychological studies that more business leadership literature is based on than anything else. Stanford Prison Experiment, Marshmallow Test, Power Poses, whatever. 7.5 of them have been debunked. And so the position I'm taking is just this, like, try it out for yourself. What works? Because what works will stick. What isn't going to work will fade. And I think that's the conversation that I've seen people are more interested in having, like, okay, where's all this come from? And again, it might just be that I'm saying, look, these are just ancient patterns lived out over long periods of time. A lot of societies for thousands of years, they had a king or queen, prophet or prophetess, priest or priestess. And we have leader, empath, sage. That's how we do it. And there also is a very biblical ancient pattern for that. Prophet, priest, king. So there's a lot that threads together. It's just like, how much do people want? And that's the problem, I think, that some are going to have, because they're going to be on the extreme side of like, you better force feed them or you haven't done your job.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's at all wise.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in all that is the starting place is what works and what's the data tell us. And then this back end sort of build out of, hey, that's in the Bible kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not the starting place being the Bible tells me so.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to go build something based on, does that feel accurate to you?
Totally. Yeah. And there are going to be people that are going to react on both extremes of that. They want it to be that it starts with this.
Yeah.
And if that's where they are and that's what feeds them, that's great. For me, it's just much more of a, looking at it and saying, what's produced transformation in my life and the people I've helped? Let's go to that. What's continuing to hold people's imagination and lead to the transformation of their mind? What's going to help them in that moment show up when they would want to get their own validation and go, oh my gosh, I didn't try to hype the moment. I just apologized. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't try to like make the moment about my own, like, look what I did for you. I stopped being a martyr, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what compels me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't want to go too long here. I got maybe a couple questions that I think are, if I was listening to this, I'd be waiting to get.
Yes.
Like, all right, come on.
Break
the seal here.
That's why Daniel's here. You can see it.
In today, you just said, there are some people who are going to want to start at a place of like, no, you got to, force them. It's not my style.
Yeah.
But, if they want to do that, great, good for them, or that's great or something. I think I'd push back like, well, it's not great to come from a vacuum of knowledge and,
Totally. If they do violent with their approach, I wouldn't endorse that.
Yeah.
Do violence? No, absolutely not. Yeah. This is awesome. What I would mean more is like, if for them they're coming to a place of just like a simple, like, well, the Bible says it, so that's it. If that's helping them grow and better live the fruits of the Spirit and better live the Beatitudes, awesome. I would say that force feeding it on others, if they're not asking for it, it's like the rich young ruler when he was walking away from Jesus. That's like diving after it and like wrestling them down and going, no, you will believe this. Yeah. You got to let people take the path they're taking.
Yeah. Okay, so putting all this context, I mean, this sounds lovely. It sounds great. Everybody already thinks and believes what they do. So the ability to frame it in a way that is like data and metric oriented as well. Like, hey, I don't really care what you say. Like, are you becoming a better leader? Are your people healthy? Like almost, you will know them by their fruits. Like, are we actually measuring the fruits, right? This sounds lovely. Obviously, the larger context, we're in a socio-political environment of today. You say the word a faith-based or a faith-oriented, or it's Christian in origin or something. Now you've entered the conversation of everything from the huge sort of evangelical shift, that we've seen into politics over the last couple decades. You've opened the door to Christian nationalism and all the ways that the word Christian gets parked in these different camps that I know are not what you're talking about. This is not a Christian nationalist movement that you're starting here. But now, I don't know, you've pitched your tent in that camp in terms of the language use. Yeah. And so like, how have you thought about, maybe I care less about the business impact of that and more just about you feeling like I'm in integrity to my values here. How have you just come to grips with like, this is a complicated camp to put your tent up in?
Yeah. Well, and because everybody's going to read in, oh, he's in my camp.
Right.
So I'll tell you 5 camps.
Or he's super far out of my camp.
Yeah. Exactly. 5 camps I'm not in. And I think these 5 ideologies are the same ideologies we see today. And this is exactly what was happening in the Gospels. And again, for me, it's the ancient wisdom. One camp was the Essenes. They just go out to the desert. We got a homestead. City's crazy. Let's get away. And
you're not tradwifing?
You see all of this ideology happening again.
Yeah. Okay.
You also see what would have been Hellenism. So for them, it was like the advancement rescues us. So in our world, it would be technology. Technology is going to rescue us. And that was an ideology during Jesus' time. You have the Pharisees, moral purity. And I see two Pharisees today. The obvious one, menacing Christians and menacing HR departments that are as equally guilty of policing for purity along whatever their cause is. And it's not, and that's part of, why I've been a fan of what you do, because you're not bringing that energy to it. The Sadducees were all about keeping a religious doctrine, but getting in bed with politics however they needed to keep the power. And then there was the fifth group, the Zealots. Like, we got to do violence, however we got to do violence to keep power. Yeah. And I see that on both extremes. Now, the context Jesus is leading in has all five of those ideologies. Same ones I see today. And it's a great grouping. I'm sure there's some exceptions to it. He built a team mixed up of these people who would have hated each other. I mean, he's got a zealot on his team, and somebody's going home and going, I can't believe Simon the Zealot's on our team. And the wife is like, you shouldn't be on a team with him.
Yeah, I can't believe his last name is Zealot.
Yeah, exactly.
Who does that?
Who puts that in their name? But so for me, it's like, man, it's going to be messy. Like this isn't a marketing ploy. This isn't a move that is like thought through. It's those three reasons I went through earlier. It could be risky. This could be the last great thing we do at SightShift, and this kills us. I mean, I don't know. I truly don't know.
Yeah.
It's not a certainty. I just know this. The Beatitudes were the way forward. And that transformed everything. And it was a transformation that none of these ideologies were going to bring. And there's no current ideology that's going to rescue us. It's going to be how we live change. Yeah. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's cool. I've never heard anything like that before about those five kind of groupings and thinking about who they are today. And do we see kind of those sorts of groupings? That's super interesting. It reminds me, and maybe this is a good place to kind of wrap for now. But I think it's something you told me years ago that I've always remembered. But thinking about that group of five and how Jesus built a team out of all of that, and kind of thinking about like a leader today, we're not after a world in which you dictate who everyone on your team is. It's how are you going to build a team out of disparate worldviews, out of differing lived experiences, out of different ideologies. Yes. And the truth then is like somewhere in that messy middle, which is an idea I think that you and I talked about a long time ago. And I think I'm able to detach from the labels of we're niching down toward faith-based leaders, or we're, if someone is able to navigate and live in the space of like, hey, the truest truth, at least in the way that we're going to discover it or be able to, is in the messy middle somewhere. It's not on either end of any spectrum we could design. Yeah. That feels cool. And I know that's the work I'm trying, I think, to do. It's definitely the work that you're engaged in teams is, how do we get better? How do we increase our capacity to play in the messy middle, to stay there when it feels messy, and not, because those five groups are so seductive, because at least I get to say I'm a part of something. Yes. And the middle sometimes feels nebulous and ambiguous, and like even if I don't like that group, at least I could be a part of something.
It's a home.
Yeah, it's a home. At least it's a tent in the wilderness. Yeah. Yeah. So that's cool. Maybe that's how I'm seeing more of you after this conversation. This shift in business is less about dogma and more about the capacity to play in ancient wisdom without the dogma. Without the baggage, which is nearly impossible, maybe. But like that's kind of the point. Like stay messy. Does that land for you? I don't know.
Totally. I mean, that's like one of our big values is to stand in that electric middle where there's two truths. I mean, I think the deepest parts of Christian belief are so powerful because they are two opposite truths. I have an individual consciousness. There's a me, but there's a we, right? And it's a group consciousness, and it's one Lord, one faith, one baptism, whatever. And the West is all about the me, the East is all about the we, but it's both. We need both, and it's that electric middle. And all of these different ideologies offer things, but they are half-baked truths. They're not complete. And so inviting teams and organizations to step into these moments of, we're not telling you who you should be as a leader. We're not telling you what your culture should be. We're just saying this. This is how you can be the best secure you as a leader. This is what your culture could look like if you paid attention to what we see in these risk factors. And ultimately, if you live all these out, it's a better human experience. It's a better humanity. And why wouldn't we want that, right? But it is, of course, going to be messy because everybody comes in either, I don't say everybody, very few people come in going, what might I do to upgrade the way that I approach this? With that curiosity, people are looking for you to make them feel better about what you already believe so they can dive in with you. And we just say, we haven't rediscovered anything new.
Yeah.
Rediscover what's true. Don't just believe us. Try it on.
Yeah.
See what works.
That's awesome.
See what works.
That's awesome. Well, I know I came into this conversation with, obviously my own perspective and thinking, and that's how I've thought of questions and where I wanted to go. Where didn't I take this conversation and give you the chance to say something or ask something that you still have lingering, if any?
Dude, man, what a great question. Truly nothing. I mean, if I've learned anything the last 6 months and since 2008, my daughter's like, it's been a hard few months. I'm like, yeah, and a hard 18 years. We can't control outcomes. For me, it's a reality of I humble myself. I can't be the source of my own validation. The Lord is that source. That's the lifting up that occurs. There's no control of the outcome. So as vulnerable as we know how to do it, as this idea emerged to have this podcast, just thank you. Thank you for being here to be a shepherd, steward, guide to the moment. And there's no plan. We were just here.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thanks for having me. I know, even in your closing, I feel myself like that's not where I am. And I think that's the point of the conversation is we can have a sit down around this thing that feels so core and integral to both of us, but in different ways. It's leading us different places.
Yeah.
And even in your wrap up, I'm like, oh man, you just unwrapped a whole new thing. I want to, and so I appreciate you having me here. And I know the point, people didn't see the background emails or anything, but the whole point was, bring skepticism, bring curiosity, bring your can opener, and let's do it. Yeah. And appreciate that about you. Had a great time talking. It's fun to play with these big truths. Yeah. This ancient wisdom. Yeah. And so thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for being here. And like Daniel just said, maybe even how I closed opened up something else. And if we just encourage you to stay on the path, stay curious, whatever that takes you, in a non-reactive identity. You never know.
Beautiful.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Peace.
See ya.
Thanks so much for being with us on the SightShift podcast. I hope in some way we've encouraged you to face, lean into, and become aware of the moments that represent so much transformation possibility. If you want more, you can always go to SightShift, SIGHT, shift.com, and learn to make culture your edge.